The heavy iron gates of my sanctuary didn't just creak, they groaned under the weight of a sudden, violent pounding that shattered the golden silence of my Saturday morning. I looked at the legal notice taped to the glass and felt my blood turn to ice because these people weren't just asking for a fine. They were claiming my entire backyard belonged to the neighborhood association. This was my grandmother's dirt, my sovereign soil. And these vultures in pastel polos were about to find out that some boundaries are written in blood and reinforced by the United States Navy. I stood there for a second, just breathing in the scent of rain-dampened pine and the bitter aroma of my forgotten espresso. Who do they think they are? The air felt thick, charged with that static electricity you get right before a massive storm breaks over the mountains. I could hear the rhythmic thud-thud-thud of a heavy boots on the hardwood behind me, a sound so steady it could calibrate a watch. That was Elias. My husband didn't just walk into a room, he occupied it. He was a man of few words and even fewer smiles when his home was threatened. A retired Master Chief who had spent 20 years hunting monsters in the dark so I could sleep peacefully in the light. He leaned against the doorframe, the faint scent of gun oil and peppermint trailing him, and his eyes narrowed as he saw the paper in my trembling hand. I handed it to him without a word, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The letter was signed by a woman named Brenda Vane, the self-appointed president of the Hidden Creek Homeowners Association, asserting that our 3-acre orchard was actually common ground diverted by a clerical error 40 years ago. Is this a joke? It wasn't a joke. A white Lexus SUV was idling at the edge of our gravel drive, and 3 figures were already stepping out with clipboards and measuring tapes like they were colonizing a new planet. Brenda was lead, a woman whose hair was sprayed into a rigid helmet of platinum blonde and whose smile reminded me of a shark evaluating a wound. She was flanked by 2 men who looked like they'd never seen a day of hard labor in their lives, wearing matching khakis and expressions of smug entitlement. I stepped onto the porch, the humidity of the Georgia morning clinging to my skin, and felt the first wave of genuine fury wash over me. "Can I help you?" I called out, my voice steady despite the roar in my ears. Brenda didn't even look up from her clipboard at first, just waved a hand as if she were shooing a fly. "Oh, we aren't here for a chat, sweetie," she chirped, that fake nice southern drawl dripping with condescension. "We're just marking the new fence line since you've been squatting on community property for quite long enough." Squatting? My grandfather cleared this land with a mule and a handsaw while Brenda's daddy was still in diapers. I felt Elias move up behind me, a silent shadow of pure muscle and concentrated intent. He didn't say anything yet. He just watched them, his gaze scanning their movements with a cold, tactical precision that made my skin prickle. "You're trespassing," Elias said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that seemed to vibrate the very floorboards under my feet. Brenda finally looked up, her smirk faltering for a microsecond as she took in the sheer scale of the man standing on the porch. But Karens like Brenda are built on a foundation of unearned confidence and a lifetime of never being told no. She puffed out her chest, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "Now listen here, Sergeant or whatever you are," she spat, her voice sharpening into a blade. "I have the revised plat maps from the county. This land is HOA property, and we've already sold the development rights to a poolside clubhouse project. You have 48 hours to clear your personal junk off this grass before the bulldozers arrive." The audacity of it was breathtaking. I felt a sigh escape me, a long, weary exhale of someone who was tired of being pushed. Do they really want to do this? I looked at the orchard, where the peach trees were heavy with ripening fruit, the scent sweet and heady in the humid air. That land wasn't just dirt, it was my soul. Elias stepped down the first stair, and the two men behind Brenda took a simultaneous step back. "I'm going to give you one chance to get in that car and drive away," Elias said. His voice dangerously calm. The kind of calm that precedes a hurricane. "If you set one more stake in this ground, this becomes a federal matter." Brenda laughed. Grating sound that set my teeth on edge. "Federal? Don't be dramatic. It's a civil zoning dispute. And I have the board behind me." She turned to one of her cronies and barked an order to start driving the stakes. I watched as the man, trembling slightly, raised a wooden stake and a mallet. Click. The sound of wood hitting wood echoed through the trees. Click. It felt like they were driving those stakes directly into my chest. Elias didn't move to stop them physically. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a single, 30-second call. "Alpha Base. This is Miller. I need a hard verification on the perimeter encroachment at Sector 7. Bring the surveyor and the heavy hitters. Now." For the next 20 minutes, it was a standoff. Brenda and her team continued to pace out the new borders, shouting about liens and lawsuits, while Elias and I sat on the porch swings, watching them like they were a particularly boring reality show. I could hear the cicadas beginning their midday drone, a rising wall of sound that seemed to mock Brenda's shrill demands. Then, the ground began to shake. It wasn't an earthquake, it was the synchronized rumble of 3 black Suburbans and a heavy-duty truck with U.S. government plates. Brenda stopped mid-sentence, her face paling as the vehicles swerved onto the grass. Flanking her Lexus, a group of men in tactical gear and a very serious-looking woman in a charcoal suit stepped out. "What is the meaning of this?" Brenda shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is a private neighborhood." The woman in the suit, who Elias later told me was a high-level investigator for the Department of Defense, didn't even glance at Brenda. She walked straight to Elias and handed him a leather-bound folder. "Master Chief, the encroachment is confirmed. This isn't just your land. It's a designated buffer zone for the adjacent Federal Communications Array. Altering this landscape is a felony under the National Security Act." The twist hit Brenda like a physical blow. Her eyes went wide, darting between the armed guards and the official seals on the documents. What? As it turned out, when Elias retired, the government had placed a permanent easement on our back acreage to protect the underground fiber optic lines that fed the nearby base. It was a secret Brenda's revised maps conveniently ignored because she had been bribed by a developer to acquire the land by any means necessary. Elias stepped forward, the sunlight catching the scars on his knuckles. "You didn't just try to steal from a neighbor, Brenda," he said, leaning in until he was inches from her face. "You attempted to compromise a secure federal installation for a kickback. That's not a HOA violation. That's treasonous intent." The sound of handcuffs clicking shut was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. Brenda started to wail. Pathetic sound as the federal agents led her away. Her 2 cronies were already face down in the grass, being zip-tied by men who didn't care about their country club memberships. I watched as her white Lexus was towed away, leaving deep ruts in the mud that Elias would later smooth over with his tractor. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was no longer tense. It was the silence of a battlefield after the smoke has cleared. I looked at Elias, who was finally smiling. Grim tuck of the lips. "You okay?" he asked, tucking a stray hair behind my ear. His hand was warm, steady, and smelled of home. I nodded, breathing in the scent of the peaches and the fresh earth. "I'm fine," I whispered. "Is it finally over?" "To us." The HOA was dissolved within the month after an audit revealed Brenda had embezzled over $200,000 in maintenance fees to fund her lifestyle. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. But no one ever dared to knock on our gate without an invitation again. As I sat there watching the sun dip below the tree line, painting the sky in bruises of purple and gold, I realized that some people mistake kindness for weakness and silence for surrender. They think that because you live quietly, you don't have the teeth to defend what is yours. But the world has a funny way of balancing the scales. Justice isn't just a concept, it's a force of nature that waits for the right moment to strike. Those who seek to build their empires on the ruins of others' lives will always find that the foundation is made of sand. We kept our land, we kept our peace, and we reminded everyone that when you come for a tiger's den, you better be prepared for the claws. The orchard stood tall, its roots deep in the dark, honest earth, a testament to the fact that truth, when backed by the right kind of fire, can never be stolen.